Good evening again. This is Manoj here from Plotch. Hope you guys are enjoying. I'm speaking from Bangalore.
हाय गुड
So
इवनिंग सर।
I,
एक
it's
आर्मी पर्सन है, ठीक है। एक आर्मी पर्सन है, मेरे को टैक्स के बारे में
I
पूछना
think
है। उसकी
someone is
टोटल साल में
speaking.
पेंशन आनी
Sorry.
है 14 लाख, ठीक है।
I would request
डेढ़
everyone
लाख
to
टैक्स
please
सेविंग
keep
एफडी
yourself
करवानी है
on
उसकी।
mute. Yeah, thank you. This is open session. So unfortunately, this is not a webinar session, but it's an open session. But I would request everyone to be on mute, please. If you have any questions, feel free to ask, unmute yourself and feel free to ask. I want this to be an interactive session. The important aspects of IGM, it is an important function of how the, the ONDC e-commerce will happen, in future. It's becoming a core part of ONDC e-commerce ecosystem very soon. So I want you to be super active, super interactive, and ask. Please feel free to ask any questions. I have with me Parul. She will, be, showing the demo. So I'll hand over to her. I'll just do a quick intro of IGM because I think it's important that all of you understand what IGM is at a very high level, right? And uh, and then we'll go deeper into IGM and actually show you a process of how the IGM flow will happen in ONDC. Let's say customer raises an issue, how will that flow from buyer app to seller app and seller app to buyer app and all those things, right? Um, so IGM broadly is an issue and grievance management API protocol defined by ONDC so that disputes can be managed in ONDC ecosystem, right? Now, just imagine if you have millions of buyers and millions of sellers. How do you manage dispute in such a large network? Like it's a population scale network. That's what we call ONDC. It is a population scale network. This is not a small network of a few thousand people or few lakh people, right? This is a large, very, very large network. So that disputes can be managed in such a large network in a very scalable way. What ONDC has come up with is IGM APIs, so that the issues between buyer app and seller app to buyer app can flow seamlessly through APIs. This is not through email, not through chat, not through WhatsApp. This is through APIs, and that's a transformation. When you look as issue management, right? So broadly, if you have to look at it, this framework is that this is a issue and grievance management framework that ONDC has come up. What we are going to show you is a very basic level of IGM. There are, I would say level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4 kind of grievance management in ONDC ecosystem. What we are going to show you is a basic level of IGM because that's what we're starting with on ONDC. And of course, we'll graduate to more like ODR frameworks and how do you get into, online dispute resolution kind of stuff. Now, what Plotch is a leading enabler in ONDC, tech enabler in ONDC, and we have buyer app and seller app solutions, and we also coming up with own RSP. What we have developed is sort of an IGM solution, which not only people who are using Plotch, buyer app and seller app, but others can also use it, right? Because one thing we are realizing is that integration of IGM with any of the CRM like Freshdesk or any other CRM that you're using can be challenging to manage the flow. And we have an inbuilt CRM that we have built. So there is a seamlessness from with respect to ONDC that the IGM and our CRM works seamlessly. So that's what we have developed. IGM, as I said, it is to enhance the scalability of issue management. Millions and millions of issues. How do you solve it? And that scalability problem. can only can be solved through APIs, and that's what IGM API is. It's not cannot be solved through your emails and WhatsApp kind of stuff. So it is an issue management API framework between the buyer app and seller app. People who don't know ONDC, let me tell you a little bit about ONDC. I don't know if most of you, I'm assuming, know ONDC, and therefore you have come here to basically understand how IGM works. But for folks who are new to ONDC, let me take you a 30-second intro of it. Right, ONDC, it is a two-sided network. It is a network. On one side you have buyer apps, on another side you have seller apps. The buyer apps bring traffic to the network, seller apps bring supply to the network. And through ONDC is specified APIs, the transaction happens between buyer app and seller app. And therefore you can, as a customer, order, and you as a seller can sell, right? So that's how the ONDC broad ecosystem is. It's a two-sided ecosystem, buyer app and seller app. And these two-sided ecosystem talk to each other so that transactions can happen. Now, because the two-sided network and not a platform like Flipkart or Amazon or others you see in the market, it is important that these two sides can talk also with respect to issues and disputes and grievances kind of stuff, right? And that's where the IGM comes into picture. And very soon it is going to be mandatory for all buyer apps and seller apps to use IGM. This is not going to be optional, it's going to be mandatory. So it is important, even if you're not part of ONDC network right today, is to understand what IGM is, and therefore act on it early on. As I said, we provide advanced IGM tool for IGM, right? How the issue will flow in IGM. So this is the important slide. I want you to look into it and understand it very in more detail. Is that on my left hand side is buyers, on the other side are sellers, right? Buyers are buying, sellers are selling. Buyer apps and seller apps are sitting in between and connecting buyers and sellers, right? The issues are raised by the buyers. An issue is primarily related, maybe not always, maybe primarily related to sellers, right? Either product being defective, either not dispatched on time, either that product was something that they want to return kind of stuff, because it's a wrong size or color or those kind of stuff, right? So issue in most of the time, the complainant, now that's the terminology which is used in IGM, is complainant is primarily buyer and respondent is primarily sellers. Now it can also be reverse. It can also be that seller has some has some issues and they want the buyer app to resolve it kind of stuff. But primarily in this example, we are going to see the forward flow, which is primarily from buyer to seller, right? So buyer comes on, let's say, a buyer app, like let's say take example of a Craftsilla or Meesho, right? And says that I received a defective product, or where is my order? So primarily, if you see e-commerce world, 80% of your queries are where is my order and where is my refund. It's primarily on these two. So let's say they say I want to return because I received a defective product. This issue is raised by buyer onto the buyer app, right? And the customer might have given a photo, an image of a let's say of a defective product. Let's say the product is jewelry, just take an example, right? A defective jewelry, something happened with the jewelry, the color is not right, and those kind of stuff, right? This image and this issue is raised on, let's say, Meesho, right? Now Meesho needs to forward it to let's say on the other side, the seller app, I'm just taking example. Idea Masters is a seller that we just enabled on the network. Let's say the seller is Idea Masters, right? So this issue that the defective product has been received has to be communicated to seller app, which is Idea Masters, and that communication happens through IGM APIs, right? So IGM, in a very simple, structure wise, that the primarily two APIs: issue API, which is to raise the issue, and a status API, which is to basically get the status of the issue from the other side, right? And corresponding their callback APIs. So on issue and on status. So issue is primarily going from buyer app to seller app, and on issue will go from seller app to buyer app. Right? That's the, I'm giving a very high level understanding of how, what are the APIs involved, and just you don't need to know it. I mean, just for information. So through this API, buyer app will forward the request, the IGM issue, to the seller app, and seller app then may need to either go to seller and raise the issue with seller that, oh, you dispatched a bad product, here is a photo of the product, right? Now that is where the IGM doesn't come into picture. The IGM is between, in the network, which means the buyer app and seller app. Now, but in the case where seller app has used on network logistics and the dispute is related to logistics, let's say I have not received the product, the seller app can raise that issue to a logistics on the logistics network, and then basically the IGM can extend. So IGM can extend if it is basically being cascaded to a logistics network, but IGM doesn't extend into the seller side, right? And that's where we have a solution that you can extend your Plotch through Plotch IGM extension. You can actually also seamlessly connect your sellers, your seller app and buyer app. All these three entities can be connected, right? Now issue is forwarded. Issue is responded by seller app. Once let's say seller says, okay, you know what, I agree that refund, let's say refund, I agree to the return kind of stuff. Seller app will then say to buyer app, please refund the customer and my resolution. There's a two parts in in issue. One issue is the issue status. There's two statuses, sorry. One issue is the issue status, which means that whether it's closed or open, whether issue is closed or open. And other is that issue resolution status, which means that what resolution are you giving, whether it's resolution of, let's say, refund, that please give refund, whether it's resolution of replacement. Let's say, seller says, I cannot refund, but I can replace, kind of stuff. So seller app can tell buyer app, replace, I am okay with the replacement kind of stuff, right? So issue status and issue resolution status are two important things that you need to, when you're looking at IGM, that needs to be taken care of, right? Now, if let's say issue resolution is that please refund the seller, right? Sorry, customer, please refund the customer. Then the corresponding API can be update API from buyer app to seller app, which basically triggers the refund flow, right? You may not be aware about update and on update and all that APIs, but there is a corresponding automatic trigger based on the IGM resolution which has come, right? So again, it comes to this whole scalability angle, right? That you are able to get even the resolution action automatic through IGM, right? So it doesn't need to be a manual. The issue action doesn't need to be manual, right? I have a few questions. I'll take them before I take 2 more minutes and get into the demo. I think there are a few questions here. One sec. Someone had raised.
Sandeep, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Yes. So, while we're talking about buyer raising their concerns about a particular delivery to the seller,
Yeah.
and seller will obviously reply back with the resolution.
Yeah.
You were saying something about using of on-network logistics.
Yes.
So if the seller has used on-network logistics, so is that logistics partner is also included in IGM so that he can reply?
Yes.
So
Yes. Yes.
the
Yes.
you initiated the point, but I think
Yeah.
the point was not complete.
No. No. You're completely right. This. So. For the simplicity, I have not put the network. ONDC. Net the logistics network of ONDC. But there is a parallel logistics network. This is a retail network that I'm showing. There's a parallel logistics network where the buyer app of logistics and seller app of logistics are there. Seller app of logistics are primarily your Dunzo and load share and delivery and Shiprocket. All those guys are there. And buyer app of logistics are primarily seller apps of retail network, right? So issue raised in retail network can be cascaded to a logistics network. And the issue ID remains the same, right? So at each point, if someone says, what happened to this issue at logistics end or the seller app end or buyer app, each of them can tell you a single a coherent answer that this is what is the resolution of the issue, or this is what the issue status is, right? So issue ID remains same in both the networks, but it can be cascaded and can also flow back.
So if I have understood it correctly, if I am being a seller and I'm passing forward a particular concern which is raised by a buyer app to my logistic on network partner,
Yes.
then he can reply back with his answers or a picture of his delivery
Yes.
back to this API, right?
Through the on issue API, the POD will come, let's say proof of delivery. The proof of delivery
Hmm.
can come to seller app, and then seller app can then give it to the buyer app, and buyer can then through their own interface can give it to the buyer, the customer.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
So the documents can flow. Not only the issue that remarks and description flows, the document can also flow.
So, is there any process of raising reminders as well? If I'm passing something to somebody, I should be able to put some reminder as well on that app, right? That I have sent this concern 24 hours before, and till now I have not received any reply. So, can I also add some reminders over there in that API so that the other party gets that the notification probably?
So APIs doesn't have reminder functionality, but it has these two things. One is issue response and resolution SLAs. What is my expected response time and what's my expected resolution time, right? So that the buyer app can tell the seller app that I want the resolution response within, let's say, 1 hour, and resolution within 24 hours. And you in your CRM, CRM, let's say plot, using plot CRM, there it can, the reminders can be put.
Okay, thanks.
Any other
Okay, Manoj,
question from anyone?
yeah, Manoj, I wanted to ask you a question more on the so what you've been explaining so far is how it happens.
Yes.
I'm trying to understand from a customer experience point of view, how does it work?
Sure.
So if I go to Paytm right now, and if I go to the ONDC store, I can pick up a few utensils, right? That's what has
Yes.
been activated,
Yes.
right? So I'm not talking about, so the end customer does not know, and I'm comparing ONDC to the current favorite, which is Amazon.
Sure.
Okay. Now people don't know whether there's an IGM equivalent at the back end. People
Yes.
don't know, and with all due respect, the end user will not want to get entangled in the details of how it happens. He just wants to know whether it's going to happen or not.
Yes.
And
Yes. Completely right.
you talked about delivery and you talked about Dunzo, etc. ONDC is going to in future also extend to financial services, in which case
Yes.
you may not have delivery partners.
Yes.
So my question to you is this: if I'm on the ONDC Paytm network, and if I pick up, let's say, utensils, and I pick up, along with the utensil, I also pick up an insurance product.
Yes.
And tomorrow I want to return both.
Yes.
What do I have to do? What is the customer experience? I go to the Paytm app again, and I go to my order, and then I refund the click for refund. That's it. Is that the flow? And am I expecting Paytm to then reach out to IGM and IGM to do the necessary flow that you just showed us on the slide before this, and then from the seller move the money back to the buyer? Is that what I'm expecting? Is that the end goal?
Yes. So you are almost right in a lot of
Okay.
what you said, right? For a customer doesn't care whether the behind ONDC network is there, all the entanglements are there. They are coming for a great experience. They are looking at experience, what they get from a platform, from the network, right? In most of the cases, your customer won't even know that Paytm is behind using ONDC network, right? For them, basically, Paytm is the front face. Your both the products, I can't talk about Paytm, but I'm assuming Paytm will do it, right? Is that both your products will be there in your My Account section, right? In ONDC, that there are 2-3 flags that a seller has to set. At least from a retail perspective, is that cancelable or returnable, right? If a product can be cancelled, and if an order can be cancelled and a product can be returned, then IGM doesn't come into picture. So automatically customer will get a return option. They will say, I want to return. They will then, the return flow. There's a return flow which happens in ONDC, which is update, on update API, all those things. This is not related to IGM at all, right? The IGM will come into picture when there is an exception which has happened. For example, in Indian Consumer Act, if you receive a defective product, even though seller is saying, I will not take a return, or you are entitled for a refund, right? So which means that this will get into an IGM flow, because you may not get an option to return the product when it's non-returnable. Let's say seller is saying, I can't take returns.
Fair.
So those kind of stuff, right?
Fair.
Then basically you will say, I want help. So you will raise a query with Paytm and said, hey boss, I got a damaged product, but I want to return. I'm not getting any return option.
Correct. So
Paytm
IGM is the engine at the background. It's not a new interface. It's an engine at the background in case of no refund or no return.
Yes.
So from a customer experience point of view, that is what it is in the background. Whether the handshake is happening from the refund or return or IGM, the front end app remains the same, ONDC, whichever app that they're using.
Yes. For a customer, a lot of things are happening behind, but they are seeing as if they're talking to Paytm and getting a resolution from Paytm.
Lovely, thank you.
Yeah. So Manoj, just on that particular question, if let's say there is, as you pointed out, that if there is already a return or a cancel option available, that is the option that would be selected by default. But is IGM, does it have a come in picture as an escalation metric? Say, for example, I have selected return option, but somehow no one has come to pick up my order, and that is why my refund is stuck. Now, can IGM be used as an escalation matrix? Or
Yes. As I said, this is when the defaults don't work, then IGM comes into picture. So IGM is a tool which a customer or a seller, those IGM as a tool seller can also use when the seller has not received payment for something that they have dispatched. So that also is an IGM tool that they can use, right? So it is a default tool. It is a tool for when default doesn't work, kind of stuff. You can use. That's how you can take it.
Understood.
Right.
Thanks, Manoj.
Yeah, Mega, you have question? Sankalp, you have question? Because you have raised hand, so I'm asking.
Yes, Manoj. I wanted to ask, can there be more than one live issues on a single item?
on the single item, can there
More
be
than one live issues.
Yeah. So so every issue has a issue ID. So there is no, as far as I know, there is no restriction that one order cannot have two issues. There's no restriction that I see in the API as of today.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Manoj.
Hi,
Megha, you
Manoj.
have any questions? Sorry.
Yeah, hi Manoj, Shrutipsha here.
Hi.
I just wanted to ask, so with regards to customer experience, I think you have already addressed many points.
Yeah.
With respect to the buyers, sellers, the extended buyers and extended sellers, so basically the APIs provided by IGM would be kind of a communication network for grievances within these buyers and sellers, right? So this communication will be happening through APIs. So are the parameters, whatever the response goes, as you said, the status APIs. So all the buyers and seller entities which are there, they'll have to get these APIs integrated with their ERPs and with their systems, right?
Yes.
Okay, so only then it will be applicable for communicating or resolving the grievances.
Yes. So as for you to be able to use IGM APIs, you have to be a network participant in ONDC. You have to be an NP, which is what we call NP, a network participant. As a NP, you are either a buyer app or a seller app or a logistics provider. These are the three entities who are primarily using right now part of ONDC network, right? Now, if your system, your CRM doesn't support IGM APIs, then you will have to go to your CRM and say that I want IGM extension so that I can use your CRM for IGM.
Yeah, that was my actually question, that how, if it is not feasible, then they'll have to develop the codes
will have to
which
develop,
IGM will be providing. Okay.
And that's why I said we also have an options that if you want to use our CRM with IGM, that option is also we are offering. And we we can talk more about it if you're interested. Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions from anyone before I just take 2 more minutes on the slides and then we get into demo?
So, Manoj, I have a question actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. Manoj, I'm currently using plots actually for buyer app
Yeah.
currently, and there are a few issues that I've actually noticed, while using this plots tool.
Yeah.
And because I've been interacting with the customers myself initially because I wanted to understand the product and everything. So
Yeah.
what has happened actually is basically while we are raising the ticket with the seller app, right? So the internal functionality that the plot has actually it gives you a forward option from where you can sell the ticket to the seller app.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm aware of that issue, right? So that is where the IGM will kick in, right? So currently what happens in our CRM, once you get a ticket, you need to forward it to seller app, right? And it is creating a separate ticket into the ecosystem, right? I'm assuming that's the issue you're talking about. With IGM, the ticket remains the same. The ticket doesn't change. It's just that whatever communication between the buyer app and seller app, that comes in the ticket itself, right? One single ticket.
Okay. So
Yeah.
Sorry. Carry on, please.
No, so the issue that you're talking about will be resolved, in the IGM world, IGM world of ONDC. Yes.
Okay, so I have another particular issue actually. So
Yeah.
what happens is whenever we are forwarding a ticket to a seller app, right? So what they need is basically an alternate order ID, right? So the order ID which is mentioned over here doesn't work with them because they need an alternate order ID and then only they'll able to track the order,
Yeah.
right? So what happens is whenever we forward a ticket from the forward option, it doesn't contain any alternate order ID with it,
Yes.
right? So what happens is he writes you back maybe in a day or two, and from the customer experience or a customer service perspective, right, that TAT is already breached, right? So that is one aspect wherein I think we need to plug in actually because it is taking a lot of time.
Yeah. No, you're completely right. So basically for both entities to resolve the issue, the ONDC order ID has to be communicated. Now, this is where the IGM kicks into picture, where because it actually carries that ID in the API itself. So you don't need to worry about, whether the other side has understood, what is the, the issue related to and those kind of stuff. So there is the ONDC order ID is part of the payload of the API. It is mandatory part, which has to go from one side to another side.
Yeah. So actually, currently we have to manage it manually, and we have to write them an email specifically, separately to get the status of the order.
Yeah.
Right. So that's the reason the TATs are getting breached and the customer experience also. And another thing that I have is actually, when we click on the order item ID, right? So it opens a new window, and in the new window you will be able to see a track or order option, right? So most of the cases, I would say 99% of the cases, what I've seen is that in a situation wherein the TAT of the delivery has already been breached, okay, the track order option will not work. So what happens is when you click on a track order option, it will give you an error, right? And it will never let you see the URL where you can see the status of the order, right? But currently there is a new issue which has come up right now. What that issue is actually when you click on that track order option, right? It will not show you the URL.
Sorry to I think this session is more about IGM. If you have anything related to IGM flow, see, most of the issues that you're talking about is going to get resolved with IGM, and this is why the IGM is important, and this is why this session is important. That we understand how IGM is going to solve the scalability challenges that you're facing right now. This is exactly why the IGM is being introduced with full force by ONDC. That please adopt it, and all these communication issues between buyer app and seller app can be resolved.
Okay, so I think let's go through the demo first.
Yeah, I think so I'm very hopeful that with IGM all your issues will resolve. Yes. Any other question from anyone? So let's just give me like another 2 minutes. I'll just so this diagram is important. If you understood it, I think if pretty much understood all the 90% of what IGM is, what it is. Now, issue itself, the object of issue, the issue which is being forwarded between two entities, has this structure. It has issue ID, which is what we discussed right now. It is a common ID which everyone knows. This as even if it's cascaded to logistics side, this issue ID remains the same. So everyone can track with this issue ID, right? There's an issue complainant and issue respondent. Issue respondent can be seller app, can also be logistics, right? So that's why issue respondent and issue complainant, these two exist. There's an issue title, which means the subject of the issue, the description of the issue. Then images related to issue is also there in the API. Then issue status and issue resolution status. These two things which I, in my previous, when I was talking about, that these two statuses, are important because one is telling whether issue is open or closed. That simple thing. And another thing is telling what is the resolution that we are giving for this issue, whether it's refund, replacement, exchange, whatever that is. Right. And then SLAs. The TATs that we're talking about, that issue response has to be responded within 1 hour. Issue resolution has to happen within 1 day. All those things. The SLA is also part of the issue. So this is basically at a very high level. We basically are giving Plotch IGM no setup fee, nothing. You please use it if you want to use it. Of course, all buyer apps and seller apps who are hosted on Plotch are using it. And we want to go live on IGM as soon as possible. It's very, very important for customer experience. Already we are seeing a lot of challenges on how to manage issues between buyer app and seller app. This is not a platform, this is a network. So, one party is dependent on another party for issue resolution. IGM helps that in a big way. I'll now move the, hand this over to Parul. Parul, are you there? Can you?
Yeah, hi. Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone.
Parul, can you do a short demo of what we talked about? This is a version 1 of IGM that we are talking about, that we have developed. Version 2, which will have more advanced features, will roll out, within and will show you in more detail, more complicated scenarios of IGM. Yeah. Do you want to share screen, Parul,
Yes.
and take us through the demo?
Yes,
Thank you.
sir.
And Parul, if you can describe, what you're doing in more detail, like what is the buyer app, what is the seller app that you're using, and what's the issue, and just describe
Sure.
it a little bit more detail. Yeah, it will help. Thank you.
My screen is visible too,
Yes,
sir.
yes, it is visible. Yes.
So this is the buyer app on which when the customer will raise the ticket now, then the ticket will be received by the buyer app.
So buyer app, sorry, Parul, buyer app, I think it's Craftzilla in this case, right? So customer sees Craftzilla
Yes.
buyer app, right? What you're
Yes.
showing is the buyer app's backend and not the front end, which is
Yes, it is the backend, sir. So is this screen is visible to you?
yes, it is visible. Yes.
Okay. So this is the seller app where the buyer will forward the request or the query of the customer to the seller, and here the seller will be able to check out the details of the customer issue.
So Parul, can you go to Craftzilla and raise a ticket? Let's say I'm a
Yes.
customer, right? I want to raise a ticket. So, I want to raise an issue. So how do I raise an issue on Craftzilla buyer app? And then you have another seller app, I'm assuming Idea Masters or something, who will,
Sure.
The buyer app to seller app journey, then you can show. Yes.
Hi, Manoj.
Yeah.
Before Parul is starting with her process of demo,
Yeah.
I just had one query. The last
Yeah.
slide which you showed, now all the fields which are enlisted,
Yeah.
only I would suggest if ONDC order ID can be enlisted over there as well.
Oh, yeah. Sorry, no, I missed that. That is important. I'll include that. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay.
That's a good point. Yeah. Thank you.
Fine. So this is the Craftzilla buyer app where I have already placed an
I don't see the screen changing, Parul, so I'm not sure everyone can.
Okay, so just allow me a minute. Is this a
Any
screen
other
visible?
question anyone has while Parul is preparing the demo?
So my this screen is visible to you, sir.
Yes. Now it's changed. Yes.
So if you have already placed an order, then you need to go to the My Orders section here. And here you will be able to find out all the orders you have placed till now. Then from here, Get Help, you need to click on Get Help to raise a ticket. Here you will have to select your issue type. And here, your order ID is automatically selected. So here you can write down your concern. There is an option to attach the damaged product file. Submit. So my ticket has been raised. Now we will check into the buyer app. The same icon, manage ticket. So this is the ticket raised by the customer. I have received the damaged product, so kindly do the refund. Here is my name as a customer. I will click on this to view the complete issue. I have received the damaged product, so kindly do the refund. So this is the image I have received. This is the alternate order ID, which will auto generate. So now I will
this order ID, just alternate order. We call it alternate order ID, but this is actually ONDC order ID. This order ID is automatically fetched and basically being displayed here. And this order ID will then go to the seller app when you push. Yeah.
Yes. So now the buyer will reply to the customer. So we'll click on reply, dear sir. Your query has been received.
This is a communication between buyer app and buyer. There's nothing to do with IGM.
Yes.
Till till this point, the IGM has not kicked in.
For the solution. If you want to attach any file here, you can like the attachment.
Just skip it, Parul, attachments. Yeah.
Okay. So now the reply will be received by the customer here. You can see it under the raised tickets. Here you can view. So this is the reply. The customer has received, your query has been received. Kindly allow us some time. Now the buyer will share this issue with the seller app. So to share it with the seller app now, you need to click on push IGM. Click on submit.
This is a bit manual process right now, but automatically, because we have the ONDC order ID, will automatically know which seller app to push. So in the next enhancement, we will actually make it simpler. A simple push.
So it will go in the phase 2, probably. That's what you're saying. You don't have to choose it manually.
Yeah, you don't have to choose manual because we know the ONDC order ID, so we know which seller app it's related to. So you don't need to choose the seller app to which to send to. You just say push IGM, and in the next version also will give you option to add remarks and images of your own, which you want to send to seller app.
Okay, thanks.
So now this is the seller app backend. Here the person will be able to see the tickets. We'll refresh this. Order related issue. Why my order just run me.
Paul, I think you're in different account, from what I know. Because you raised it on Idea Masters.
Okay, so. Just allow me a minute.
Any other question anyone has?
Manoj, will we also be covering escalations and ODR, SP and other pieces?
No, not
PRO,
so
ODR,
currently basically is MVP which is getting rolled out, which is minimum, features on IGM. So that's the rollout that ONDC has told us that go with the MVP flow right now. So ODRs is not part of that.
Understood. So we are targeting the level 1 issue grievances right now, and level 2, level 3 will be part of later.
Later, yes.
Understood.
Okay. So the screen is visible now.
Yes, I can.
So this is the correct seller account. The seller has received the ticket from the buyer. I have received the damaged product, so kindly do the refund. You can see the image has also been received. Now,
so basically the issue has moved from buyer app to seller app now. And this is what seller app is seeing. The same, image and description, all those things.
So now seller will do the reply to the buyer.
Can't we see an example where the seller app is actually sending it to the logistics partner for their feedback?
So in this, basically, we don't have the on-network logistics for this particular orders. So we can't show it to you.
Okay.
The cascading demo, we can't show it to you right now, unfortunately.
Okay. Shall we go ahead, sir?
Yeah, so what you have done, Parul, is that you have said that resolution status is refund, right? The first thing that you did, that please
Yes.
refund, right? And
Yes.
then please go ahead and do the refund and refund approved. This is what seller app is telling the buyer app.
Exactly.
And then you are then through IGM, you're communicating from seller app to buyer app now, right? Yeah, go ahead.
Parul, can you please show me the app option before you put the send button? Just show the option of refund and what are other options? Okay, so there can be situations where no action can be taken, right? Because probably the logistic partner has already clicked a photo while delivering the product to the customer.
Yes. So you can say no action because it's been delivered. Please do not refund. Those kinds.
Sure.
So no action is also an resolution, which you can say.
Sure.
Manoj, in an example where this is being used by a seller marketplace, is there a way that we can also forward it to the sellers to get their inputs, or is it should be a manual work where we call them offline and get an update and do update here? How does that work?
So that's where the forward flow is there. So you can forward this to seller. So we have forward button here. So you mean seller app to seller, right?
Yeah, seller app to seller. Yes.
Yeah. So you can forward this ticket to seller, but for that you need the seller has to be in Plotch.
Okay, but isn't there a way that we integrate our seller app? I mean, we have the front end part and do this integration because we'll have to get automated replay from them, right?
Yeah. I mean, there is no reason why the IGM cannot happen between seller app and seller. Because the same thing that we are talking about between seller app and seller, we also talking about RSP, seller app to seller. In RSP also is between buyer app and to seller app. And why can't RSP be used for seller app to seller? I think the same logic can be here why the IGM cannot be used between buyer app and seller.
But there is a case where the seller himself, I mean, you mentioned seller can also raise a ticket. I mean, raise a ticket through IGM saying he did not receive payments for certain orders that he has.
Seller app can, seller cannot.
Seller cannot. Okay.
Seller app can that I did not receive payment for this order from buyer app.
Okay.
Maybe on behalf of seller has raised query, but between seller and seller app, the CRM piece, it can be your internal CRM. It's not that leg is unfortunately not connected with IGM right now.
Okay.
But I think it is a good point that that leg also should be connected because it's an important leg.
Yeah, otherwise, because as of today also we are receiving these tickets into our CRM, but we are doing that offline part, getting an update from the seller and putting it. That is still a pain point to the
still a
seller
pain
apps.
point.
Yeah.
It's the same pain point what you may have for payments, seller app to seller payment.
Yeah.
Any further question?
No, Paul, go ahead. I think we are almost at the end of the time.
Also, the seller has drafted the reply and we'll click on send. Yes, sir. To share it with the buyer. So now we'll go to the buyer app. Please go ahead to do the refund approved. This is how the reply from the seller will be received by the buyer. So now buyer will do the reply to the customer.
Buyer app will do reply to the customer.
Yeah.
Yes.
Here, so
This is what we are showing is a very, very simple flow of IGM, but also very critical because the communication with buyer app, seller app right now, common reference points. The question that, someone raised that when we are forwarding, then the information is cannot be exchanged seamlessly kind of stuff. All that is taken care of here because, through APIs, everyone knows which order ID, which issue ID, and all those things are there. So this now is completing the leg between buyer app and buyer, and so we'll just finish the demo at that point, and take any more questions from anyone.
So the customer will say thanks.
Yeah. Great. Thank you, Parul, for this demo. I think I'll take a few more questions and then we can wrap up.
This is a pretty much simple workflow. Sorry, this is a pretty much simple workflow, and that is very much understood. The only thing is, as I suggested before, that if ONDC order ID can be included, then that same thing can be integrated in the IGM.
Yes, yes. No, ONDC order ID, sorry, ONDC order ID is already there in IGM APIs. I forgot to put in the slide.
Okay.
It's already there. I mean, that is part of the APIs. I can show you very quickly, the API and all those things if anyone is interested. And I can show you also the live logs of what we saw just right now. Let me just, quickly do that.
Just one question, Manoj. I just want to understand, while the seller would be replying back to the buyer, so it will create a new ticket for that communication, or it will be the same ticket wherein the buyer has, where the communication has been generated?
It's the same ticket always. So the ticket ID doesn't change.
Because currently what happens is when a seller replies is when we currently use the forward option.
Yeah.
So when a seller replies back, a new ticket is generated.
Yes. So that's why for that IGM will solve that problem.
Okay, got it.
IGM will solve the problem.
Manoj, I have one more question.
Yeah.
So buyer to buyer app and seller app to seller, these communication happen between the internal CRM, only IGM happening between buyer app to seller.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Manoj, I have one question. Will we be there a provision for an agent? Like suppose in extreme cases, if it is not solved, and if you'd like to speak to any agent, physical agent, will you be giving any provision in future?
Yes. So basically, there's a concept of GRO, Grievance Redressal Officer. That who basically the contact detail of the GRO of the seller app and buyer app is part of the API. Actually, I'll also put that into my slide, because I think I missed that important part. That if someone is to talk, say, okay, because of not able to get a resolution, the GRO can be called as a level 2.
Okay.
If the level 2 doesn't work, then level 3 is ODR, which is an ODR is Online Dispute Resolution Framework, which extends IGM to ODRs, where the people can reach out to ODRs and resolve that issue. And the 4th level is court. Manage, take it into the court.
Okay, fine.
Hi Manoj, I have a question. So when you showed the that order has been refunded, right? So basically the order state has changed, right? So do you also like what happened in the background? Like was just the IGM API called, or did you also call the /update API to update the order state?
Yeah. So /update API also gets called because that's the issue action which completes the issue to be closed, right?
Yeah,
so this is the power of IGM, right? The seller says, I'm okay, resolution is refund, automatically the update API will go out.
Oh, or update API is called in the background, is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Because that's the issue action. That's basically saying that this needs to be acted.
Okay.
And if someone says why this refund happened and all those things, seller says, I know why this refund was not something that I authorized. The issue ID and issue on ONDC order ID, all the logs can be presented and said, see, this happened, that you said resolution to be refunded and therefore the refund happened. Any other question from anyone? We will definitely do another session. We will show you more complicated flows of IGM. We just focus on the simplest, flow between buyer app, seller app, buyer app. But they can be more complicated, cascaded flows and all those things. And a lot of other things are there in IGM from, escalation, all those things. So we'll definitely do another session. But hopefully you like this session. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us at ondc@plos.ai. And any other thing that you have related to ONDC, you can also reach out at ondc@plos.ai, not just for IGM, for payments, RSP, whatever you need. We are a tech enabler in ONDC, so we basically are involved in a lot of tech enablement projects in ONDC. So happy to help you in any way and form that you need. Thank you for your time. It was lovely, presenting and on this important, IGM, protocol.
Manoj, had a quick question.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. Yes.
That's the thing is, I think we did a similar session with RSP a few days back.
Yes.
Would you be able to share a recording of that? I unfortunately did not.
I will share with you.
Okay. One question on the IGM itself. In some of your earlier slides where you are showing the complaint and other things in a diagram, there was a box which said there is a plot CRM plugin. Is that the demo that we have seen, or is there a different plugin that integrates with various CRM softwares?
So we basically, I maybe I didn't present it well, but we don't integrate with other CRMs. We have our own CRM. So if you use our CRM, automatically IGM is enabled. Kind of stuff.
Sure.
Manoj, request you to share the recording of this session as well with all the participants.
I will definitely do that. I'll definitely do that.
Thank you.
Manoj, one more question. I wanted to ask if you only have a seller app on ONDC, how would you exactly test the IGM module?
So if you are just a seller app, you will need a buyer app on the other side to test it. If you want to test with our buyer app, happy to set it up for you. Okay. If you have your IGM enabled in your tech stack.
Thanks, Manoj.
Reach out to us at ondc@plos.ai and we'll happy to set it up. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, great. Thank you, everyone, and have a nice weekend. And thank you again. And we'll meet very soon. Bye-bye. Take care.